Today we are joined with Liam Frankfurt. He's a advocate of personal finance and technology. Can you give us a brief introduction?
I'm a college student right now. I'm kind of a newer college student. I'm right in the middle of a 4-year technical degree right now. And a big pattern that I'm seeing, or I've kind of seen around me ever since leaving high school, is that people like to kind of throw away money easily. Whether that's by choice or whether it's not. People still have expenses and stuff. Yeah. So I, ever since March, have gotten big time into stocks. I've kind of had a plan to get into them for the last 2 years, but I've been kind of waiting for that economical drop, and I've been waiting for kind of something to happen where I could feel comfortable going in. Because if it drops enough, obviously it can only go up from there, or that's at least the assumption. Um, and so ever since March, I've been doing stocks kind of off and on. Um, Actually, a pretty heavy amount, I'd say, for somebody of my age category. But yeah, that's a little bit about what I've been doing in terms of finance.
That's awesome to hear. I take it that you are part of the FIRE community, and for those who don't know what FIRE is, it's financial independence, retire early. Normally found on Reddit, but it's kind of hit mainstream in the past couple months.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I'm not in fire yet. It's
Yeah,
but I aspire to be. I think
yeah.
most people would prefer to have that goal.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I can say for myself now that I'm also working toward fire. How did you find the concept of fire, or just wanting to be financially independent? Was there like a YouTuber that you watched, or some subreddit that you read?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of always been a goal of mine. Um, I I think it's just been viewing the mistakes of people around me that have inspired me to want to be financially independent. I guess one of the biggest ones is that my parents still aren't retired. I mean, they've been doing really good, and they own businesses, and they've done really well for themselves ever since 30. But because they didn't get that early start, they didn't get very far. Like my dad, I think one of his biggest things was he bought this brand new car at 28, and that basically brought him all the way back down to zero from 50,000 or something like that, or a hundred
Hmm.
thousand. And I was talking to him the other day, and he's like, that was one of the dumbest decisions that I've ever made in my entire life. And so, just kind of stories like that, both in my family and outside of my family, just hearing how much value people put into items that honestly won't even matter in 20 or 50 years. So I guess just viewing the mistakes of people around me, as well as I actually discovered the FIRE subreddit community just recently. And I didn't even know financial independence was like a thing that people were into. I kind of felt like a sheep in a pack of wolves. But as it turns out, there are a lot of people that are into this thing. It's just not the people that are around me, like at my school.
Gotcha. Yeah, I totally agree with that. A lot of my friends, I feel like they don't have a grasp of like saving for retirement because it's so far away. So I have a lot of friends who like to just spend money on random things and not live as frugal. But for me, I kind of realized that too, that it's important to start saving now. And now for me, I would consider that I live kind of frugal. Would
Yeah,
you consider yourself that too?
yeah, I'd say so. Obviously, I like to treat myself. Um, like if I've done really good at work, then that's kind of my excuse to go out and get fast food or get an ice cream or whatever. But I mean, I'd say relatively, I do live pretty frugally.
Hmm.
Uh, Obviously, I'm not looking at buying the newest iPhone every year. I'm not looking at, the newest really anything. And I think that's the biggest part of financial independence is to put yourself away from the mainstream and especially the new mainstream of, because it's like
Yeah, really
technology,
expensive.
yeah, it's expensive, but I mean, technology is growing at an incredible rate, which I think is awesome, because I think like my iPhone that's now 3 or 4 or I think coming up on 5 actually generations older than the newest one that's going to come out.
Oh wow.
Like that iPhone still performs wonderfully and does probably about 70% of the stuff that the newest one does. Yeah, it's not the best. Obviously, it's never going to be the best. But if you want the best, you have to keep buying the best each and every year for in terms of, Apple products, thousands of dollars every year.
For me, I totally agree with that. I'm still with the 10s Max, so it's still relatively new. But for me, I don't plan on upgrading anytime soon because
Mhm.
this phone has been doing me great so far. It's still strong. It's still powerful. The battery's still good, and the way that Apple's been going, I just can't keep up with their ecosystem with what they're releasing. They want us to get AirPods to be connected to our phones that are connected to our Macs and all that. It's just so much for me. And on the concept of cars, one thing that I've always been grown up with is that my parents always told me that it doesn't matter what kind of car you have. It just depends if you can get from point A to point B back
Mhm.
and back to home.
Totally agree.
And for me, that kind of just stuck with me because right now I just drive a simple Ford Focus, and when I was younger, I've always wanted like a really like luxurious car, like a Lexus or a Mercedes.
Yeah.
But all in all, I kind of just realized that the car that you drive just all really depends is that it can get you from one place to another. Not
Oh, of
everyone's
course.
gonna stop and look at your car and just compliment you. This is in LA,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
and
yeah,
you know what's funny about cars specifically is most people, I guess I shouldn't say most. I don't have a direct statistic, but many people who are going out and buying these new cars off the lot are, people that are my age, like younger, in their 20s, and these guys just want to look cool. Like that's all it is at the end of the day. And they,
it's just a big flex on like everyone. I was like, what are you
well,
trying to
right.
flex right now? You're 22 and you bought a car. Congrats, but
But here's the biggest problem though. Most of these guys are going into debt, right?
yeah,
Like when buying the car off the lot, and it's like I don't like. Is there anything more stupid?
yeah, exactly. Because once you drive off that lot, your car already like depreciated.
Right. Yeah.
So you could buy a car for like $50,000, and you could drive off the lot, and it's 48,000 right there. And you might as well just put that money into the stock market, where you can actually gain $2,000 in maybe a day,
Right.
depending on what you're trading on.
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Totally.
but for me, I see a lot of people my age right now that are growing up, and they're all posting pictures of getting houses and getting cars. But for me, I think houses are a little more flexible because I think those are more reasonable
Hmm.
to go in debt for. Just depends how you do it.
Yeah.
But buying a car, I'm just gonna drive this car until it dies.
Oh,
Really,
for sure.
yeah. So what financial instruments are you using to prepare yourself for financial independence to retire early?
Yeah. So right now, I mean, I'm pretty much well. I guess a few. I'm working. I think I'll be working about 60 hours come fall,
Oh
60-hour
wow!
weeks, as well as being in school. So
Holy cow!
I'd call that an instrument in its own because most people I think at the most who are in college, and to be fair, college is busy, but
Hmm.
most people who are in college will kind of excuse themselves and say now is the time for partying and now is the time for um, you know drinking, going out with friends, having fun. And if I'm not doing that, then yeah, maybe I can get a part-time job, maybe 15 hours a week at like minimum wage paying job. You know,
Yeah.
and kind of what I did is I set myself up with jobs that pay much more than the minimum wage. That's also part of luck. I think I got pretty lucky in my job search, but I just I put myself at a high value in terms of what I can do for work, and talk to these places, and they're like, you know what, yeah, we want to hire you. So I think that was my one of my biggest things is just making sure that I'm getting paid a decent amount. Obviously you're not going to be getting paid something crazy like $40 an hour right
Yeah.
off the bat, but like, a decent amount more than minimum wage.
Hmm.
If you find the right job and if you're willing to do kind of whatever just to make the money. Uh,
Yeah.
and then I think putting in the hours as well has helped me a lot. And realizing that it's okay to put in the work earlier. In fact, it's actually recommended to put in the work earlier so that you don't have to later in life. That's kind of what my mindset is right now.
Totally. I totally agree with that.
Because it's like I'll be working 60-hour weeks now, but man, I would hate to be working 60-hour weeks when I'm 65 or 70,
Hmm.
because I have to. Which is kind of why I made that choice in the first place. So, I mean, I'd say some of the biggest things are, I'm getting paid a good amount and I'm working a lot of hours to make big paychecks. And then with those paychecks, I'm taking those and I'm putting those into like retirement accounts and just, general brokerage accounts to make sure that I can take that and build from there. Now, obviously, that part's a little bit more risky, and I back up the hours that I'm working to cover any risk that stocks would take away from any money. But I mean, with stocks, the big thing is just don't be naive. Like, know what you're buying and stuff. And I think that you should be good. So I'd say those are the main things that have been helping me right now.
That is awesome that you're working 60 hours a week and in college. That is must be a very busy schedule for you.
It's gonna be hard, but yeah,
But are you with the pandemic going on? I'm assuming that you're going through the Zoom University too at home.
I'm actually not.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My college is unique. We're like one of the only colleges, for sure in the state, but maybe even in the country, that is still doing in person. Because right now I'm studying for a film major, and
I got
with
you.
film, it's like a lot of in person stuff. And so the teacher kind of talked to the principals, and they gave the okay as long as we're, social distancing and wearing masks.
Wow, that's awesome though. 60 hours a week and a paycheck. And how much of that are you saving, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So I'm saving all of it pretty much.
Oh, really?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean,
Do you
I
have rent
have,
or any of that?
sorry, what?
Do you have rent or any of that? Or are you still like commuting?
Um, I No, I don't have rent. Um, right now, well, what I do in the summers usually is I go back and live with my parents for a little bit, and I got very lucky in that regard because my parents. I mean, my dad kind of got it because he pretty much, like I said earlier, he bought this car and then kind of went right home to his parents at 28 and was like, I think I might have made a dumb decision. I don't have money. Can I live here for a little bit? And I think he spent like 2 more years there, and so like my dad totally gets it, and so my parents are cool with me living at their house, even if I'm in my early 20s and high school's been over for a while, which has been super awesome because I've saved probably over $20,000 for what
Hmm.
would have been rent.
Yeah, it's crazy because I moved down. I moved out of home right out of college, and now that I think about it, I kind of wish that I would have just stayed at home so I could just like bank up money. Because when I was doing my internship and I was just saving every check that I got, I was like, well, "This is great,"
Hmm.
and I wish that I would have. Because I feel like there's a bad stigma with people staying at home post college because I like I don't know why, but people just look down like upon it. But for me, I think that it's not as bad when you're young,
Hmm.
but people just want to see something new and just party more probably because a lot of people that I know moved to Chicago,
Mm.
and Chicago's full of like one, it's pretty expensive, but then again, the nightlife experience that you get is out of this world.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure, man.
But so if you get all this paycheck and you're saving it, I'm assuming that you're maxing out your Roth
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
every
pretty
year.
easily as well. Which, I mean, people don't think that you can do as a college student. I'll say this. I mean, with what I made in my first year of really working, working enough to where I actually had to pay taxes, or like do a tax return. I mean, to where I made that amount of money or more. I'm blanking out right now. I don't know why. Yeah. So once I got to that point, it was about like a good amount of it. I'd say it was like probably 30%, 40%, 50% of what I had in total going into my Roth. And at first I didn't put everything in. I kind of put maybe 2/3 of everything in, because I was pretty weary because what I was told by, my dad and the broker and kind of everyone else was that, you're not going to see this money until you're like 60 or 70 or whenever you want to take it out, but at least, 55. And when you're, only 20 or 19 or 22 or however young, that's a scary thought to have. Knowing that you worked hard for that money and you're not going to see it. And if you try and take it out, you're going to be, I mean, you're going to have to pay to take it out essentially. And it's not a cheap amount either. And so, kind of knowing that, that was a scary thought at first. But after that point, I was starting to make enough to where it wasn't a big deal and it didn't matter really.
I mean, I think the cool thing about a Roth IRA compared to like a 401k is that you can still take out money from your Roth without getting taxed or penalized
Hmm.
as long as it's your contributions that you put in, which is great because if you're maxing out your Roth every single year, and let's say by the age of 40 that you need some spare money, you blew through your emergency fund, and it's awesome that you can just go to your Roth and just withdraw any contributions that you put in the past like 20 years, which could be,
Right.
if you add that all up, my math isn't too great right now, probably like 120,000, something like that,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's risky because
Hmm.
you don't want to, get into an emergency and take it out too early. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, in case of, dire need, like you're about to go homeless or something, then yeah, the money's there. It's like a backup savings account.
Yeah. Speaking of savings accounts, are you using high yielding savings account? Are you more of a like a physical store type of bank, or do you trust online banking?
Good question. I mean, I've gone with online just because that's the way that things are going, unfortunately. And obviously, like with COVID, things took a huge hit. Like people, generally speaking, people stopped using cash just because of sanitary purposes. And anybody that you see in the store, generally, right, uses a
Hmm.
card now, especially now. And so that was the way that it was going before. COVID gave that a huge boost, and I don't think that we're going to be able to really go back from that, in the next 10 years. I think, in 10 years from now, for the most part, we'll be using pretty much only online money. And again, I'm generalizing because I can't say and I hate to make predictions, but I'm just saying, sometime in the future, I think it's going to be completely online. And so even though that's not my preference, I'm a huge advocate of cash. I still think that online is the better option just because that's looking like that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, I totally agree. For me, I stopped using cash like a while back. I carry like maybe like a $20 bill just in case of like emergencies. But do you currently have a high yielding savings account online?
I think so. I mean, I've like
Meaning, like, do you have
in
a savings account that pays more than 0.01% interest?
yeah, okay. Yeah, I gotcha. I do. Yeah, through my brokerage. I put a good amount of my money into my broker because that's just it's kind of it kind of allows me to have that money to trade if I want, but also I'm getting a good amount on top of that just in annual interest back.
And when you trade, do you mostly just trade stocks, or are you like advanced and you trade options or any of that advanced stuff?
I don't understand like options and a lot of other stuff about like the stock market. I didn't even understand stocks or ETFs or anything like that at first. Like that took me a while to understand. Again, I've only really been doing this since March, so I'm a pretty new investor. But I've been around the community a lot, and I've really tried to get more into it. But no, yeah, I don't know too much about the other stuff. Just kind of the primary stuff that people talk about more than mainstream.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say that also my stock trading has also gone up since the pandemic started. It's definitely a nice little like side gig to do
Hmm.
when you're bored, kind of. Like you just throw in some money, watch it, and then if you have time on days, learn how to day trade and join communities is what has been really helping me. I joined some Discord chats where people just talk about stocks and all that, and I've been learning a lot from just from that because there's people that do day trading for like a full time job,
Yeah,
and the terminology that they throw out and just all that, just questioning it, and usually they're really nice people because they're in. because everyone in that like chat room or community has a goal to make money. But if you were to give it some tips to people who want to start living frugally or start saving for financial independence, what tips would you give them today?
This is gonna be hard because I'm gonna talk to my own crowd here, the young crowd. But um,
I mean, that's ideally the crowd
right,
that needs to hear this the most
yeah,
because because the younger generation is so into like flashy things,
uh
like
huh,
buying the luxurious goods, luxurious
yeah,
things
totally,
that make them look like they're like thriving in life, but in reality, it could potentially send them into a debt pitfall.
of course. Yeah, I'd say just know what you really need. That's kind of what it is at the end of the day. 'Cause, obviously I have wants too, right? Like I want to drive that fucking. Sorry, do you
Oh
allow
no,
swearing?
you're good.
Okay. Uh, I want to drive that 2020 Ford Focus off the lot or whatever. I'm not good with cars, man, but like whatever. That brand new Tesla. Tesla Model 4 or whatever is coming out. Like
Yeah,
I, of course I want that. Like everybody wants that. It's unreasonable to think that nobody wants that. But that being said, know what you really need and know that you want, and put aside your wants for later. Because too many of us, and again, I'm speaking to the young crowd here, too many of us are getting, I think too many of us are following the wrong narratives, and we're a little bit too hopeful that things will just kind of work out. Um, like, for example, taking loans out of banks for college. That's a big thing that I never got into
oh
because I
really?
saw how it could affect me in the future. Yeah, so I've no loans at all. I paid for all my college up front, and I hope to continue doing so. Um,
Ooh, do you have any
I'd
hacks
say,
for that?
well,
Because I
it's
feel like
just
a lot of people could use that like right now.
yeah. I mean, don't go to college right away. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I spent a gap year after high school just working. And
Yeah, that's
like I
smart.
found a job, I just worked, and I had enough to at the very least, pay for my first year of college. And so I'd say that's something that I'd recommend doing. If you know that you have 4 years of college, try and do four. I mean, for some people, like don't even go to college. Don't feel pressured to. I mean, how to
I
say this?
agree.
I know it sounds bad. I don't want to advocate against going to college because I think if you have the money to pursue further education, do so. But
I agree.
at the same time, there are cheaper options. A degree isn't the only thing that matters in life. You can go online and you can educate yourself as long as you have the self discipline to. And so just understand your options. Don't take out loans. The problem with loans is that, you take out $1,000, but then in whatever 10 years, that ends up being 5,000. And
The interest kills you.
that's right. That's the huge issue that people don't understand about loans, young people. And I'd say the other thing is just know what you're buying into. Because with my college, even now, like I question, and I'm in the middle of it, which is kind of the only reason why I'm continuing. Because to me, it wouldn't be worth it to not continue at this
Mhm.
point because I've made it so far and I've just really enjoyed it. But kind of know what you're getting into. I knew kind of how much I'd be paying for my degree and if it'd be worth it or not. And like even now, I kind of question whether it will sometimes. But at the end of the day, I think it's people just need to think more critically about their money and understand their purchases and just be able to settle. I guess to settle for less.
I agree. I truly like what you said about taking a gap year from high school to work to pay for your first year of college because I think that's the perfect way to start. I think ideally because if you get loans to get started in college, I feel like once you get I don't know. It's just I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like just taking that gap year to work and getting to pay for the first semester is more ideal. But I
Yeah,
can't really think of the reason why I'm justifying that. But I just know that I just feel like it's a really good idea because you you'll already be in that mindset of working for something that you put your mindset to. In this case, a college degree.
and I have an even better idea to go along with that. Is I mean, even if you don't want to take a gap year, just be disciplined and understand why you're going to college uh, by respecting your time and getting yourself a job as well. Like
Yeah.
not just like a 10-hour a week job, but I'm talking like get yourself, if you can, right, like a 30-hour a week job, one that pays well. Like I know that um, Target kind of around Minneapolis has gone up to 15. I don't know about other states, but around where I'm at, it's gone all the way up to 15. So that's pretty decent, for a starting job if you've never had a job before. So like, find a place that will pay you well, that can give you hours, and then work as many hours as you mentally are capable with still being able to finish your degree. Like pay it off as you go.
Yeah, I totally regret because I had a job in college, and I totally regret not working more because for me that would have meant me working earlier in the morning,
Yeah.
and that's something I'm not really the type to do. I'm not really a morning person.
Well, even, I mean, especially if you're anywhere between 18 to 20, because, I mean, you can't legally drink anyway. Going to parties. I mean, for some people, that doesn't even matter. I know that to me, it didn't a lot. But,
Hmm.
if that's something where you're like, yeah, I don't know, then do the job route. I mean, if you're doing a 4-year degree, you can always party in your last 2 years.
One thing that I think is a good idea now is that the internet has brought good opportunities for us to freelance too. And in your case, I think freelancing would be a good idea too because you're going for film, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like depending on your degree, like a computer science major or even a film degree, you can even just go on like Fiverr and post your skills up there. Have you considered doing that? Like
I
making
have.
small films?
Yeah, I have. I I'm into the idea, and I've been trying to get into it recently. But the problem with that is that too many people are tech savvy to where, again, people will educate themselves. People don't even need tech degrees to kind of know what they're doing. And in fact, I believe that a lot of people who don't have tech degrees are better than people who have tech degrees in their fields. It really depends on the degree. Like, I think programming is more one that you would have to go to college for than film.
Really?
Um, yeah, I mean, per se, right? Like,
Hmm.
based on the stuff that I've seen at my school, it's like, man, this is hard. But that's somebody who doesn't really understand it.
Hmm.
Maybe if I were to understand it, I'd say something differently. But, because film to me has always been um, like super easy. Like, I can't come up with a better word, but like, it's always been something that hasn't been so challenging for me to the point where I feel like I just can't do it. Like I've always been able to do it. I've always kind of known what I've been doing, and anything that I've learned from film, I've been able to kind of stack on top of what I already know, and then keep that information. And so, to me, film has always been something that's been, not crazy hard to do. But again, the problem is just there are thousands of people that aren't me all over the world that know how to do what I do, and even better than I do. Um, that are going on these sites like Fiverr and YouTube. And actually, YouTube is a really good example because I can't do a good majority of what these creators can do, even though, I think that I'm pretty good at it and that it comes naturally to me. And that's not just like self doubt. That's like, no, I actually, like in this given moment with what I know, I can't do that. Like I don't know how they're doing this thing, or I don't know how they're doing that thing. That can be built upon, but it's just the competition is so high to where I often question whether or not it's even worth it.
Yeah, I totally agree because you're dealing with people who are already established in the industry. Yeah, when I think of YouTubers, like their camera gear now is so advanced because like personally, I feel like Casey Neistat changed the whole game because when he started his daily vlogs, he shared so much with us, and he showed with like all of his equipment that he showed throughout his like vlogs. It's like so many cameras go into
Hmm.
it, so many types of cameras. He used drones, he used DSLRs, point and shoots, his phone even, and that's just so much to manage at
Hmm.
the end of the day when you're trying to like edit the perfect montage or edit the perfect time lapse. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's he's super talented in terms of video stuff.
Like, like I even tried vlogging for a bit, and I was like, dude, there's no way.
Hey,
Like,
vlogging's the easy one, man.
I mean, yeah, vlogging is easy, but that for me, I feel like you need like a very interesting life where you do something every day, or you're just an
Yeah.
entrepreneur.
Yeah, I gotcha. I gotcha. Either you gotta kind of fake it.
Do
All
you
right.
have any other tips that you want to give people on like how one they could start like saving today,
Hmm.
or just anything else to help them like get into the mindset of like, yes, you're young now, but you have no responsibilities. You have no responsibilities right now, no family, no nothing. But come say when you're 30, you might have a family, you might have more responsibilities where you can't save.
Yeah. I think I'd just say know your options, know what you have available to you. Like, in my scenario, I made the decision to live at home and do most of that throughout college. I mean, I moved out for a little bit, but realized it wouldn't be worth it to me. And so just realizing your options and being humble about them, because I think a lot of people push moving out after high school, and a lot of people are like, man, you don't have your own. Like, I've gone on dates with girls, and to an extent, it's kind of humiliating sometimes, 'cause, like, it's, I want to hang out with this girl or whatever, and then I can't because I still live with my parents, but there's just such a societal pressure to do stuff like that, to move out, to have the nicest stuff, and all of that. And I think just understand, like, being able to accept that you won't be as accepted by a majority of society, but people will still accept you. I mean, once you gather the right people around you, people will still like you for who you are at the end of the day, and understanding that people don't care whether you have $1 or $1 million. And I think surrounding yourself with positive people also helps because, like, I have friends that go around Minneapolis and talk to homeless people and befriend them because they literally just don't care. I mean,
Really?
people are people at the end of the day. Yeah.
True.
And
True.
so um, I'd say just stepping aside from the societal pressures and living your own life, doing your own thing, um, and not letting other people judge you for it, I think is the best thing that you can do.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely feel that. In today's age, it's really hard for a lot of people. I feel like to do that because they just care so much about their social image online.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. Like, I could give more specific advice if you want. I mean, I'm kind of generalizing.
Oh no, you're good.
Okay.
But yeah, that's all that I have for you.
All right,
Where
man.
can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so I'm starting up a new podcast called Just a Few Thoughts. You'll be able to find it on Spotify and Anchor and hopefully Apple Podcasts pretty soon here, among other podcasting platforms. And so that podcast is just, it's going to be kind of similar to this, just talking, but it's going to be just me. So I'm going to have listeners email me questions, and I'll be kind of discussing the topics and kind of hearing what the listeners have to say through, email and maybe calling in, as well as being able to share my own thoughts on whatever the topic is at hand.
That's
So yeah,
awesome. That's awesome. But thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me on my podcast. I hope my listeners did learn something from this. Um,
I hope so too.
Delayed gratification is everything. So if you could just delay getting that Tesla right now and just wait until you're maybe like 50, and yeah, probably a better Tesla will be out by then,
That's true.
anyways.
Yeah, buy the Tesla Model 300.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
real. But yeah, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate your time, and I wish you the best of luck on your journey.
Hey, no problem, man.